Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Warning: this video may contain explicit descriptions of drug use, violence, and sexual situations. Viewer discretion is advised as this content may not be suitable for all audiences.
Hello. Hope everyone's doing well on this fine Friday the 13th, September 2024. We are continuing down the road with Mr. Hunter S. Thompson and Kingdom of Fear. I think we're circling back to his sheriff's campaign. I think we finished out on the 68 Democratic Convention, and let's push forward.
Rolling Stone number 67, October 1st, 1970, which laid it all out, step by step. My idea when I wrote it was to line out the freak power concept for massive distribution, with the blueprint and all the details, in the hope that it might be a key to weird political action in other places.
And it may not have produced very much fruit in the 1970s, but I think it's starting to grow and may produce fruit in the future. I'm hoping it does. I hope it produces some fruit that I can see in my lifetime, that, you know, we mix things up a little bit.
So it was hard to know on that jangled Wednesday night before the sheriff's election just what the fuck was happening, or even what might happen. The local power structure appeared to have gone completely crazy. There was not much doubt that we had Owl Farm completely fortified.
Yeah, I imagine it was fairly fortified, probably fairly concise, and not a whole lot of people doing crazy or doing too crazy shit or unauthorized crazy shit.
And our rotating outside triangle of fire was only the beginning. Behind that, waiting to take their turns outside in the moonless, bitter cold night, was a whole house of wired up freaks, all armed to the teeth.
Yeah, and you got to remember, all of these armed people are liberals. You know, the same ones that are supposedly going to take your guns away from you.
The only light visible from the road was the outside flood, but inside, behind shrouded windows in the big wooden kitchen and downstairs in the soundproof, windowless war room, a rude mix of people drifted back and forth on the nervous tides of this night. Eating, drinking, plotting, rehashing the incredible chain of events that had plunged us into this scene.
Yeah, now that would have been, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall on that. Hell, even a human walking around during all that. That would have been interesting. Because remember, we're talking about a time in history right now that women weren't allowed to open a bank account, have a credit card, or do a lot of things that they take for granted now without their fathers or their spouses, and it had to be a male spouse, permission. So yeah, that's something that's happened in my living lifetime. So yeah, and this whole conglomeration of weirdos and freaks and bikers and this and that in this particular household and this particular night, that just, to me, is just way too fascinating.
All of us armed, nobody ready to sleep, and none of us really believing that what we were doing was sane.
Isn't it always that way, though? Some of the most impactful things in your life that you remember at the time you were doing them didn't seem sane at all.
It was all too weird, too unlikely, too much like some acid-bent scriptwriter's dream on a bad night in the Chateau Marmont.
Oh, yeah, that's a reference. I'll let you look up the Chateau Marmont to get that reference yourself.
Some madman's botch of a final politics movie. But it was all insanely real.
And like I said, that's just... when I look back over the things I've done in my life, there are things that were completely and totally crazy, insane, batshit, rat bastard crazy, that now I look at and go, oh yeah, we did some great things. We did this, we did that. But at the time we were doing them, I guess it's that whole hindsight thing.
And we knew that, too. Nobody in the house was stoned or twisted that night. Nobody was drunk. And when it had first become clear a few hours earlier that we were headed for a very wild and menacing kind of night, we ran a very discreet sort of staff shakedown and carefully selected the half-dozen or so people who seemed capable of dealing with the kind of madness the Colorado Bureau of Investigation had told us we were likely to deal with before dawn.
Yeah, as I just, you see that in your head. It's cold, it's wintry. You got all these, these people, they're stone cold sober, itching for a fight, itching for a fight that they hope never comes. And that was probably just one hell of a scene. I mean, I could have dug it.
Clearly, we were all doomed. Half the population would never live to vote, and the other half would perish in the inevitable election night holocaust.
Yeah, that's the way it seems it goes sometimes, That's probably one of the reasons why we want people as young as possible in the military, so they're getting shot and killed and not voting. I mean, it's, think about it for a minute. Think about the days of the draft, and think about the politics and the political parties that want to reinstate the draft.
When NBC TV showed up about midway in the campaign, I advised them to stick around. There'll be a bloodbath if I win, I said, and a bloodbath if I lose.
There's going to be a bloodbath either way. That's just the way it rolls sometimes.
The carnage will be unbelievable either way. You'll get wonderful footage. That would... when you're contemplating your own doom, and you're basically going, look, shit's going to hit the fan. We don't know which fan it's going to hit. It's just going to hit a fan, and it's going to splatter all over God and creation. It was back when we could still laugh about the hideous freak power challenge. But now, the laughter was finished. The humor went out of the campaign when the Aspen establishment suddenly understood that I looked like a winner. Pitkin County, Colorado was about to elect the nation's first mescaline sheriff.
So that could have been an interesting particular few years if that election would have went the other way.
A foul-mouthed, bald-headed freak who refused to compromise on anything at all, even his taste for wild drugs, and who didn't mind saying in public that he intended to hamstring, flay, and cripple every greedy plot the Aspen power structure held dear.
Yeah, the fact that he did lose the election, but it was so fucking close, is just eerie. It's kind of like when Beto went against Cruz 6 years ago in that election. That was a creepy close. There was no doubt that Cruz was going to win re-election, but Beto should have never been that close. Not in Texas, anyhow.
All their foul hopes and greedy fascist dreams. Sometime around mid-morning on election day, the Life correspondent rushed into our Hotel Jerome headquarters suite with a big grin on his face and announced that we were sure winners.
Never trust anyone that tells you that, ever.
I've been out on the streets, he said, taking my own poll. I must have talked to 200 people out there, all different types, and all but about 24 of them said they were going to vote for you.
Now, when someone tells you who they're going to vote for, it doesn't mean that's who they're going to vote for, because there are the people here locally at our local polls, especially when you vote early, that are like, vote for our guy, vote for our guy. Who you voting for? You want to? And I lie. I just tell them whatever names pop in. I've told them that I was going to do all write-ins. And that just really torqued them because, especially now that everything's digital, that just really screws with them a lot. The exit polls are, you can't, those are kind of like, unreliable. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this video good. You guys take care. Be good humans. Be good to other humans. Peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?